So if you've ever been to Advanced Auto Parts, AutoZone, or O'Reilly's, you've come across this right here. This is the Gila window tint kit. This has been very requested by you guys, and today we're finally going to be tinting the same door window, but with only this kit here. I can't imagine how they expect you to actually install film with only these tools, but the more I've thought about it, the more I've come to kind of realize that this right here, this heat gun, or any heat gun for that matter, drastically changes the price point of an installation kit. So for 10 bucks, I would suggest that they change a couple of tools in here. There's some stuff out there that would definitely make it easier for you guys to try and install. But, you know, if they're only trying to keep the price point at 10 bucks, then hey, it might not be that bad. So let's go ahead and crack this open. And there we have it. So these knives are very chintzy, very cheap. You can find these at Walmart for 50 cents. They're just, you know, your basic snap-off knife. What I had hoped is that this would include a stainless steel blade to make it, you know, a little bit safer for your car. It shows no markings whatsoever. Yeah, this blade is not safe for your windows at all. This one is actually a pretty good choice. You have a soft rubber squeegee to get out most of the water, and then you can actually flip it around and use this plastic edge here to get into more corners and stuff like that. It might scratch your film, so we're gonna see if it does or not, but you know, for an all-in-one squeegee, it's not a terrible choice. We have this here, which is a lint-free cloth. This is actually bigger than I thought it was gonna be. I mean, it'll probably clean the lint off, but it's not gonna do much more than that. We're gonna see what this is like too. Ooh. Oh, that actually sprays pretty far. Now, you only have this little bottle to work with. The application solution is already mixed up, so if you run out, they do say here on the box that you can use their application solution or baby shampoo. Now, one of the things that really gets me about this film here is that this whole company is actually owned by one of the most prestigious window film brands in the business. They are owned by Eastman Chemical Company, and Eastman owns Lumar and Suntech. So I would expect this film to actually be halfway decent. Ooh, this is not good. They're not winning any points here. There we go. That sticker made it a big pain in the ass. So let's go ahead and take our first look at this film. It's pretty gray and blue. This is a 6.5 foot roll by 24 inches, so definitely enough to tint a couple of truck windows. It's a little rubbery and a little bit flimsy. This isn't exactly inspiring much confidence. Feels very similar to a lot of like films that I've ordered off of Amazon and played around with. All right, so now let's get into the installation. So we're gonna roll some of this. We have to be very conservative with our water this time because I only have what's in the spray bottle. I can't refill it. If I have to get more, I'm spending another like 10 bucks to buy another kit essentially. So we're gonna go ahead and line this up, take this knife and cut it off. It's very curly too. This stuff's been sitting for a while. The first step is kind of get rid of some of the extra. And then we need to make the film slightly bigger so we don't show any gaps and stuff like that. But because we can't shrink it, I'm not gonna pull the film very far down to tuck below the seal because that's just gonna make things a lot more difficult. So we're just gonna go a little bit more basic on this installation because I feel like we need to try and show you guys how you could possibly use this to get a halfway decent result. I don't expect that you would get a super professional result off of it, but let's try and at least set this up to be somewhat successful. So now that I shifted that over, I'm gonna go ahead and cut down this other side and then throw this away, and then we're gonna shift it back over. So now we have a little bit of overlap on the sides, and I'm not gonna pull this down. Well, maybe just a hair. But when I cut my top edge and install it on the inside, it's gonna set a little bit below the seal, but we don't wanna install it past the bottom seal on the inside of the window. We can take this and kind of tack it to the window. So let's go ahead and roll this down a bit. Now this knife is actually not bad for cutting out a top edge. It's gonna be tougher than some of the more expensive knives, but you know, the basic things are there. You have plastic to hold the film against the glass, and then you have a sharp enough blade to make a cut. So this really comes down to a lot of practice, and as long as you try and keep it at a diagonal angle, you can cut out the top edge, but this just comes down to practice. So now that we got that cut out, we have to round our corners. Oh my God, I'm trying to, ooh. Okay, that didn't even break off clean. You see how it's now dipped up? You want these blades to break clean against these, this mark here on the blade itself. You might not have a very clean front edge either. So here, I'm actually going to put the card against the glass. And what we're gonna do is basically eyeball a straight line and then round off the corner. And we're cutting on the card so we don't actually scratch the glass itself. Gila should hire me to do these, to do a proper installation with their kit. See, we got some lines here on the card, but that is not on the glass. The application solution is drying up on the glass right now, so I would normally spray it a lot more to get it to stay in place because these corners keep rolling away. It just makes it more difficult to try and install. There we go. That's not too shabby. So we did get a pattern out of this knife. Normally I would shrink the film here. You're gonna see on the inside of the glass what happens when you don't shrink film. On larger trucks and SUVs, you might be okay with not shrinking the film, especially if it's your first time. You're probably gonna have a thing or two pop up. However, that does change the price point a lot. In my last video, my Target video, I did use a hair dryer instead of a heat gun. So if you have one laying around your house, you can get away with using a hair dryer just for the door windows that don't need very much shrinking. So it does take a lot longer to shrink with it, but it does work. All right, so now we're on the inside of the glass. Spray some of the application solution, and then want to run my hand just to feel what kind of shit is on the glass. You can take this knife, you can actually swipe it sideways like you're using a razor blade. This is not going to scratch your glass if you're going at a very steep angle. So same thing for the top, we'll just spritz it off. And then from there, you might want to wipe off your top edge too of the window, because a lot of times dirt will sit in this channel up here, especially if you have laminated windows. Wipe off the whole window with it, because this is a lint-free cloth that's supposed to help with the application. So we might as well try and use it, huh? Instead of just using it as a towel. Next up, let's go ahead and we're gonna spray this one more time. And now we're gonna squeegee our window. So we really only get a couple of shots at this with just the stuff that we have in the bottle. You see this bottom edge here? I wanna make nice clean strokes against the whole window, but this kind of gets in the way. So you have to be a little bit creative with how you do your sweeps. And then we're going to sweep down both sides. And we should be good, actually. Spray this off one more time so we have a nice layer that we can use to slide the film along the glass. They did say use 2 pieces of tape to try and get the film to peel away. The clear liner needs to be peeled away. A simple trick that I like to do is I'll use my teeth and work the corner, you know, just peel the corner that way. Just don't like bite real hard to like crunch the film. As you're peeling this away, you might want to spray it a little bit too, because you don't want any dust. You don't want much dust settling on that. it can create some static. And I will say, this does not peel away very easily. It's almost like a static cling to it. This is not their static cling film, for sure, just to be clear on that. But it's, a lot of what are called release liners will usually peel away much easier than that. This film is so flimsy feeling too. Oh, this is looking even more blue against this glass. This is definitely a 1mm film though, I'll tell you that. That means that it's thinner. A lot of professional films, like you can still get a thin film, like a 1mm film in a professional quality. It's just very indicative of being, you know, a cheap film. And yeah, it's 10 bucks from AutoZone, so you can't expect the world out of this. It's just the company that sells it. I'm just surprised a couple things. The film is so thin and the coloring is so on the blue side of things. So we're getting this lined up into place. The soft rubber grabs the film. So as you're trying to squeegee it out, a lot of times it's gonna be shifting things around. The amount of slipperiness to this film is actually really, really good. Makes it easier to try and install if you can slide it around the glass. You know, if you're trying to do this outside and you're baking it in the sun, you're gonna have a hard time. But if you're in like a cooler environment, then this is pretty ideal here. So we're gonna flip this around too. We're gonna try using this plastic edge for like the corners and stuff. And that works pretty well. So now we're getting pretty tacked up. It's still wiggling. Just give it some time. At this point, you can just kind of take a breath. If you got this far, this clean, just let it sit and it will tack up more aggressively as you let it dry out. And then you can wiggle it to see if it's gonna move on you or not. Looks like it's not gonna move on me. Go ahead and roll that up. I'll usually go a little bit more aggressive with like the slip solution because a lot of times dirt can trail and stick along this line where you have the window half-assed. I would take the squeegee and try and run it across, but there's too much here to try and get this in there and keep things clean. So now that we got that all taken care of, look at this curling back the other way. I'm gonna try and keep that wet, but like it's just curling really aggressively opposite of this liner. That's not a good thing to see. Put a little bit of solution on the underside, and then because we're sitting above the seal, we just need to lay it flat. As a professional tinner, you're going to want to install the film underneath the seal, but since we're not shrinking it and we're not pulling off the panel either, that's why we're cutting it a little bit short. Ooh. Good God. You definitely want the squeegee to be wet. Like that's kind of what I've been fighting against. Now see these little spikes here? These will suck in dirt if you fight with them too much. So as you push it down and it pops back up, it'll pull whatever was at the base of it up into it, and that's what'll make a window look really dirty really quickly. It'd be ideal to try and sweep this under the seal, but I just have one tool here. So if you have like a stick or something laying around, I mean, just use that to pull back the seal a little bit when you go to make like a sweep. See these little things popping up? Not great. So we can also try and wrap this around our towel and soak up a little bit of the moisture, or if you're in a, if you're trying to do this on a sunny day, maybe letting this sit outside and just tack up might be the way to go. It looks like we're okay. I think everything's down. And then we're gonna wipe this off. The film's starting to let go a little bit, like starting to get those little fingers popping up just a little bit. So keep an eye on that before you go to roll your windows down. As it's drying out, if those pop up, just let them dry some and then try and sweep them out. So at this point, you could probably just take a regular towel, paper towel, wipe off the outside too. You'd want to probably save this to do the other window too as well, but we're just gonna go ahead and do the one here. So that's it. I actually used only the stuff in the kit to install their film, and it didn't go as horribly as what I thought it would go. They're definitely setting you up for a hard time with only these things, but you know, it's only 10 bucks. I'm gonna link below to a cheap kit on Amazon that I would probably recommend over this basic kit here. But if you just need something now, run there. This squeegee is gonna be your biggest asset right here. And then after that, you're pretty much on your own. Thanks you guys so much for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this, and I'll see you guys in the next one.